My name is Mia. When I was 16, my mother and I moved to a quiet street called Maple Lane. It looked like the perfect place to live. The houses were small but pretty. There were flowers in front yards. Children rode bicycles in the afternoon. Old people sat on their porches and waved at everyone. It felt safe. But there was one house that did not feel safe. It was the gray house, across from ours. The grass was too long. The windows were always closed. The porch light was always on. And the man who lived there never smiled. His name was Mr. Reed. People on our street talked about him in low voices. "Do not go near that house," one woman told my mother. "He is strange," another neighbor said. My friend Emma, who lived 2 doors away, whispered to me one day, "Some people think he is dangerous." I laughed when she said it. But later that night, I looked out my bedroom window and saw him standing in his yard. He was not moving. He was just standing there, in the dark, looking at nothing. Or maybe looking at our house. That was the first time I felt afraid. Mr. Reed was tall and thin. He always wore dark clothes. Even in warm weather, he wore black gloves. He walked slowly. He spoke rarely, and when he did speak, his voice was deep and cold. Every morning, I saw him leave his house before sunrise. Every night, he came back after dark. Sometimes I heard strange noises from his garage. Metal sounds, heavy footsteps, banging, dragging. My mother told me not to think too much about it. "He is probably just lonely," she said. But I noticed something else. Every time I came home from school, I felt his eyes on me. If I looked up, the curtains in his front window moved a little. Just a little. Like someone had been watching. One Saturday afternoon, I was watering the plants in front of our house when my cat Luna ran across the street. She went straight into Mr. Reed's yard. "Luna!" I shouted. My heart started beating fast. I ran to the gate, but I stopped. The yard was full of old tools, broken wood, and black trash bags. The back door of his house was open. I could hear something moving inside. Then, I heard Luna cry. A small, scared sound. I wanted to run in, but I was too afraid. Then, Mr. Reed appeared at the door. He was holding Luna in his arms. For 1 second, I could not breathe. But Luna looked calm. She was not hurt. Mr. Reed walked to the gate and gave her back to me. "Keep your cat at home," he said. That was all. No smile, no kindness in his voice, no softness. I took Luna and ran. That night, I told my mother what happened. She sighed and said, "At least he gave her back." But I could not sleep. Why was his house so dark? Why did he live alone? Why did everyone fear him? A week later, Emma came over after school. We sat by my window and ate chips. Then she suddenly grabbed my arm. "Mia," she whispered, "look." Mr. Reed was in his backyard. He was digging a deep hole near the fence. We watched him in silence. Then he lifted something heavy and dropped it into the hole. Emma looked at me with wide eyes. "What was that?" I did not know, but I felt cold all over. The next morning, the hole was covered. Nothing was there. For the rest of the day, I could not stop thinking about it. That evening, I searched his name online. I found almost nothing. No family photos, no social media, no normal life. Then, I found an old local newspaper article. The photo was small, but I knew it was him. The title said, "Local firefighter injured in house fire." I stared at the screen. Firefighter? The article said he had once saved a mother and child from a burning home. He was badly hurt. After that, he stopped working. There was no photo of his family, no new story about him, nothing after that. I should have felt better, but somehow I did not, because if he was once a hero, why did people still fear him? A few nights later, a storm came. The rain was loud. The wind shook the trees. The lights in our house flickered again and again. My mother had fallen asleep on the couch after a long day at work. I was in my room, trying to read, but I could not focus. The storm felt wrong. Then, I smelled something strange. It was sharp. It was unpleasant, like gas. I stood up slowly. I opened my bedroom door. The smell was stronger now. "Mama?" I called softly. No answer. I walked downstairs. My mother was still asleep. The kitchen light blinked once, then went out. The house became dark, and then I heard 3 loud knocks at the front door. I froze. Another 3 knocks. I moved toward the window and carefully looked outside. My blood turned cold. Mr. Reed was standing on our porch. Rain was pouring over his face and coat. In one hand, he held a flashlight. In the other hand, he held a metal bar. He hit the door again. "Mia!" he shouted. I stepped back in fear. How did he know my name? "Mia, open the door!" My hands were shaking. My mother woke up and sat up slowly. "What's happening?" Before I could answer, Mr. Reed shouted again, "Get out of the house, now!" My mother stood up, confused. Then we both smelled it. Gas, strong gas. The storm must have damaged something, maybe a pipe, maybe the stove, maybe something worse. But still, I did not move. I was too scared of him. Then Mr. Reed looked through the side window and shouted, "The kitchen! Don't turn on any lights!" My mother grabbed my hand. We started moving toward the door, but before we reached it, there was a spark. A small blue spark near the kitchen wall. Then, a sudden flash. My mother screamed. I screamed too. The fire was small, but it was growing fast. Mr. Reed did not wait. He hit the side window with the metal bar. Glass shattered. He climbed inside through the broken window. Then, he pushed us toward the front door. We ran into the rain. A second later, Mr. Reed came out, carrying our family photo box from the hallway table. My mother was crying. I was shaking so hard, I could barely stand. I stood under the porch roof, wet and silent, while the rain fell around us. I looked at Mr. Reed. For the first time, I really looked at him. I saw the burn scars on one side of his neck. I saw the tiredness in his eyes. I saw that he was not a monster. He was just a man who had lived through pain. A man who stayed awake at night. A man who checked the houses on our street during storms. A man who noticed danger before anyone else did. The next day, I walked across the street with a small cake my mother had baked. My heart was beating fast again, but this time, not from fear. Mr. Reed opened the door. For a second, we just looked at each other. Then I said, "I'm sorry." He said nothing, so I continued, "We thought you were dangerous." He looked down, then back at me. His face was calm. "The truth," he said quietly, "is that people are often afraid of what they do not understand." I nodded, because he was right. After that day, everything changed. Sometimes I helped him with his garden. The hole in the backyard? It was not for anything terrible. He had buried a metal box with old letters from his wife. She had died years before. He said the memories were too painful to keep inside the house. The black gloves? They covered scars on his hands. The noises in the garage? He repaired broken furniture and gave it away to people who needed it. And the reason he watched our house? He was not watching me. He was watching the street, protecting it, especially on stormy nights. So yes, we thought our neighbor was dangerous. But we were wrong. The most dangerous thing on Maple Lane was not the man in the gray house. It was fear. And sometimes, fear can make a good person look like a monster. This story reminds us not to judge too quickly. Thank you for listening to this slow English story. If this story helped you practice English, please like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. See you again in the next video.